Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something that is literally the unsung superhero of our modern world, the bipolar junction transistor. We're going to break down its physical mechanics and see exactly how this tiny little device powers basically everything around us. Now, before we get completely lost in the complex physics, let's ground ourselves with a simple definition. At its core, a BJT is a semiconductor device that does two main things. It either amplifies electronic signals or it switches them. That's it. Whether it's, boosting an audio signal so you can actually hear it, or acting as a binary on and off switch in a massive processor, amplifying and switching are its foundational pillars. So here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll meet the BJT. Then, we'll go inside the transistor, followed by how the BJT works. After that, we'll look at real-world applications. And finally, we'll wrap up with pros, cons, and takeaways.
All right, Section 1. Meet the BJT.
If you take away just one single thing from this entire explainer, it has to be this core mantra. It controls a large current using a small current. It's all about leverage, right? You absolutely don't need massive energy to dictate the main power supply. Just a tiny, tiny electrical nudge is enough to command a huge flow of current. You might be wondering, why call it bipolar? Well, the name actually comes from the fact that it relies on two totally different types of charge carriers to get the job done. Carrier 1 is the electron, which carries a negative charge, and carrier 2 is what we call a hole, which essentially acts as a positive charge. By utilizing both of these polarities together, it earns that bipolar title.
Moving right along to Section 2, inside the transistor.
Physically, a BJT is made up of three specific semiconductor layers: the emitter, which emits charge carriers, the base, which controls things, and the collector, which, collects them. A really great way to picture this is to imagine a massive water pipe. The emitter is your main water supply, the collector is your final destination, and the base, that's the valve in the middle. If you open that base valve just a tiny fraction, you allow a massive rush of water to flow straight from the emitter into the collector. Now, these three layers can be stacked in two main configurations: the NPN transistor and the PNP transistor. As you'd guess, the NPN has a P-type layer sandwiched between two N-types, and the PNP is exactly the reverse. Their circuit symbols look incredibly similar, but there's one crucial difference to look out for: the direction of the arrow on the emitter terminal. That little arrow instantly tells engineers which type they're dealing with, because it dictates the entire direction of the current flow.
Okay, Section 3, how the BJT works. Let's look at the mechanics.
At the end of the day, it all comes down to a beautifully simple equation: IE equals IB plus IC. What does this actually mean? It means the emitter current, which is the total amount of current flowing through the device, is simply the sum of the base current and the collector current. If we jump back to our water pipe analogy, that tiny trickle of water you use to push the valve open, that's your base current, or IB. That trickle joins up with the massive rush of water already coming through the pipe, the collector current, or IC. Add them together, and boom, you've got your total flow, the emitter current. It really is just an elegant balance of physics.
Now, to actually use the thing, we have to apply voltage to its terminals. We call this process biasing. And depending on exactly how we bias those terminals, we can force the BJT into one of three distinct operating regions. First up is the cutoff region. If both junctions are reverse biased, the transistor is off, zero collector current. It's like that water valve is completely shut. Second, we have the active region. This happens when the emitter base is forward biased, but the collector base is reverse biased. This is the sweet spot where amplification occurs. And finally, the saturation region. If we forward bias both junctions, the transistor is fully on, giving us maximum current. The valve is wide open.
So, let's zoom out for Section 4, real-world applications. Depending on which of those operating regions we use, the BJT takes on totally different jobs in the real world. When we hold it in that active region, it acts as an amplifier. A tiny input signal scales up into a proportionately huge output signal. This is exactly what's powering audio systems, radio circuits, and heavy communication networks. But what if we rapidly bounce the BJT back and forth strictly between the cutoff region, where it's fully off, and the saturation region, where it's fully on? Well, then it acts as a switch. And this binary on-off switching is literally the bedrock of digital circuits, logic gates, and simple things like turning LEDs on and off.
Now, when you take those switching and amplifying capabilities and shrink them down to microscopic levels, you get VLSI, or very large-scale integration. This is where thousands or even millions of these components are crammed onto a single microchip. And even in these incredibly complex modern circuits, the BJT is still a heavy hitter. It's absolutely crucial for analog circuits, it's integral to high-quality amplifier design on chips, and it heavily powers mixed-signal circuits that actually translate our messy analog world into clean digital data. It is the absolute backbone of modern circuitry.
Bringing us to our final section, Section 5, Pros, Cons, and Takeaways.
Let's be objective and lay out the real-world trade-offs here. On the plus side, BJTs are fantastic because they offer super high gain, which means incredible amplification. They have fast switching speeds, they're highly reliable, and they are remarkably low cost. But they definitely have limitations. Because they inherently rely on continuous current to operate, they draw a lot more power compared to some other modern transistors. They also have a lower input impedance, and this is a big one, they generate a lot more heat. So yeah, the BJT is powerful and cheap, but managing that heat and power consumption are major constraints engineers have to design around every single day.
So we know BJTs are the invisible workhorses amplifying and switching away inside our electronics. But I want to leave you with this. Take a quick look around the room you're in right now. Where in your own home are BJTs acting as switches at this very second? Is it in the logic gates of your smart TV? Maybe the digital display of your microwave? Or what about inside the processor of the exact device you're watching this explainer on? They are absolutely everywhere. Thanks so much for exploring this with us, and keep questioning how the technology around you actually works.